you have to hit animals with an enormous amount of microwave radiation, much more than you get from an ordinary cell phone or electrical appliances, in order to get the slightest increase in, for example, lesions. Now, the grandmother of all such studies was done in Stockholm, Sweden, at the Karolinska Institute. They looked not at cell phones, but power lines from huge overhead cables. And there are houses that are fairly close to these cables, so they could calculate the distance to the cables and what was the increase in cancer. And yes, they found a tiny correlation. Our correlation was barely measurable, but the farther you were away from these high-voltage power lines, the lower the level of cancerous lesions that the people got. Their conclusion was that cell phones release only a tiny fraction of the electromagnetic radiation as these high-powered cables, and therefore, in the short term, there's nothing to worry about, except it should be monitored and new studies should be done all the time. First of all, there are two kinds of radiation, ionizing radiation and non-ionizing radiation. Ionizing radiation is like X-rays, very powerful. They will rip atoms apart, creating what are called ions, which are stripped down atoms. And these ions can create havoc inside the body. In fact, it can cause cancer. By hitting normal tissue with X-rays, you can show a definite increase in the amount of cancer. For example, CAT scans. CAT scans, in order to get these gorgeous three-dimensional pictures of the inside of your body, have to hit you with sizable amounts of radiation. And so I would say that if you have a choice, go for an MRI scan rather than a CAT scan. CAT scans hit you with a lot of X-rays, but MRI scans are non-ionizing. They are so weak they do not rip atoms apart. Now, here's the controversy. Even though non-ionizing radiation like microwaves and radio are too weak to rip apart atoms, is there some kind of unforeseen effect, an effect that we scientists don't quite understand, that could be causing cancer caused by non-ionizing radiation? And the answer to that is, quite frankly, we don't know. We don't know what the mechanism is, but the textbook says there should be almost no correlation. But we see a slight correlation between cancer and cell phones.